destabilise the region. That's why we have to have a political solution where the government is acting in the interests of the Syrian people. That's what we want to see. That's the type of democracy.
Ricky Gervais, the man with a sharp tongue and a sharper wit, has once again left everyone talking. And this time, it's about his brutal takedown of Angela Rayner during a live broadcast. If you know anything about Ricky, you'll know he doesn't hold back. And this wasn't any different.
And to give effect to the Prime Minister's 6 milestones. And by the way, just to save you the trouble of repeating them all, we're going to put them up graphically during the interview, so you don't have...
Angela Rayner, the Deputy Prime Minister, quickly found herself under intense scrutiny following her controversial remarks about the UK housing crisis and her insistence on prioritising housing for migrants. But the backlash wasn't only about what she said, it was also about the dismissive and tone-deaf manner in which she delivered her message. For families struggling with housing insecurity, her comments felt like a stark reminder of how out of touch those in power can be. And Ricky, he wasn't one to sit quietly on the sidelines. With his signature wit and razor-sharp critique, he was ready to call her out and hold her accountable for every word.
Well, there's plenty of housing in the UK, but the houses, especially social
hang on. You can't on the one hand say we've got to build this 1.5 million houses.
Angela's remarks about there being plenty of housing in the UK ignited a firestorm of outrage across the nation. For countless families struggling to make ends meet, crammed into overcrowded accommodations or left languishing for years on endless waiting lists, her words didn't just miss the mark. They felt like a deliberate slap in the face. It wasn't just the insensitivity of her claim that there was no housing crisis. It was the way she doubled down, insisting that housing migrants should remain the top priority, leaving many feeling dismissed and unheard. Her comments struck a nerve, exposing deep frustrations in a country grappling with a growing sense of inequality and neglect.
Already.
There is plenty of housing, Trevor, already, but there's not enough for the people that desperately need it. So the homes, especially under our affordable homes programme, which is social and affordable housing, there will be there for people who desperately...
It was profoundly tone-deaf, and people noticed immediately. When pressed for specifics about the decisions being made, she stumbled through her responses, dodging direct answers and skirting around the core issues. It wasn't just frustrating to watch, it was downright insulting to anyone seeking genuine accountability. Ricky Gervais didn't just recognise the absurdity of her statements, he called them out with sharp precision, labelling them for what they truly were, a glaring example of a complete disconnect from reality and the needs of the people these decisions were supposed to serve.
This doesn't quite make sense.
So that we can deliver the houses they desperately need.
Deputy Prime Minister, it doesn't quite make sense. You start the interview by telling me that there's a housing crisis.
You can almost picture Ricky's reaction. There he is, leaning back in his chair, eyebrows raised in utter disbelief, followed by that unmistakable cackle that has become his signature. But this wasn't just laughter aimed squarely at Angela's expense. It was a visceral, almost cathartic response to the absurdity of it all, capturing the exasperation so many feel about the current state of leadership. Ricky has a unique talent for slicing through the noise and exposing the truth in the most hilariously brutal way possible, and this moment was no different. His reaction wasn't just comedy, it was a mirror reflecting the frustrations of the masses, calling out the disconnect and nonsense with sharp precision.
We want to see the UN resolution implemented and a political solution. Syrians deserve to live in peace and safety, and that's what we want to see implemented.
Ricky didn't hold back, delivering a scathing critique of politicians like Angela, who, in his eyes, are entirely disconnected from the realities faced by ordinary people. He called out not only her evasive and often nonsensical answers, but also the broader system that enables such detachment to thrive. For Ricky, this wasn't just about mocking one politician, it was a takedown of the entire political machinery that seems more focused on maintaining appearances than addressing the real struggles of those it's supposed to serve. His words cut through the spin, laying bare the frustration and disillusionment shared by so many.
To immigrants.
Well, that's not the truth, and that's not the
That's
case.
what will happen.
Well, that's not the reality, because
where the 2.5 million immigrants that...
When Ricky spoke about Angela's comments, it was less about her and more about what she symbolises. He pointed out the sheer absurdity of someone in such a powerful position being so unprepared and unwilling to face the truth. How could someone who's supposed to represent the people seem so clueless about their struggles? And why do leaders keep doubling down on bad policies instead of admitting their mistakes? These are the kinds of questions Ricky asked, not because he's a politician, but because he's a human being with common sense and a platform big enough to call them out.
Things are so crazy right now in the States. It's so divided. Have you seen that reflected in the audiences that you perform in front of?
But Ricky didn't stop at calling out Angela's lackluster defence. He broadened his critique, tearing into the deeper cultural issues that enable this kind of leadership to thrive. To him, it's not just about housing, it's about something far more fundamental: trust. Or more precisely, the glaring absence of it. Ricky's frustration goes beyond targeting a single politician or political party. It's directed at an entire system that seems designed to prioritise spin, optics and empty rhetoric over genuine substance and meaningful action.
But I don't get very political, certainly not party political. I do it implicitly. I talk about stupidity.
He's often spoken at length about the erosion of trust in leadership and how that growing sense of distrust doesn't just stop at politicians. It filters down into every aspect of society, affecting the way people interact with one another. It's no longer just about questioning those in power. It's about a deeper cultural shift where mistrust has become the default setting. People have stopped believing not only in their leaders, but also in each other, creating an environment of suspicion, frustration and division. This was the fraught backdrop for Angela Rayner's comments. And Ricky, deeply attuned to the weight of these dynamics, wasn't about to let her off the hook lightly.
Never been interested in politics till the last sort of couple of years, and now I am. Now I can't wait for him to wake up and tweet.
Yeah, well, we have to be.
What makes Ricky's critique so powerful is that it doesn't come from a place of hatred or division. It comes from a place of frustration, a feeling shared by millions who feel ignored, overlooked and left behind. He's not afraid to speak the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. And let's be honest, watching someone like Angela squirm under the weight of her contradictions is a bit satisfying, isn't it? It's like watching someone try to backpedal in quicksand. Ricky didn't just laugh at her, he laughed at the ridiculousness of the situation and invited the rest of us to laugh with him.
In Syria this morning.
Well, the situation looks very serious, and if Assad regime has fallen, then I welcome that news.
He also aimed at the larger cultural issues that have made it harder to have honest conversations about topics like immigration, housing and leadership failures. Ricky's disdain for cancel culture is well documented, and this situation gave him another reason to call it out. He talked about how leaders use the fear of backlash to avoid accountability. Instead of addressing issues head-on, they hide behind carefully crafted sound bites and pre-written answers. Ricky sees right through it, and he's not afraid to say what others are thinking it's cowardly, and it's ruining the country.
You have to tell me what they all are. Viewers will be seeing
There's
them all.
mine, 1.5 million new homes. There you go, that's mine.
I'm so happy you want to talk about that. That milestone has not been achieved since 1970.
The housing crisis in the UK is a perfect example of everything that's wrong with the current system. There are over 270,000 homeless people in the country, many of them families with children, and yet new housing developments are being prioritised for migrants. It's a decision that leaves British citizens feeling abandoned in their own country. Ricky didn't hold back when pointing out the absurdity of Angela claiming there's plenty of housing, while also admitting the need to build 1.5 million new homes. Which is it? Do we have enough housing, or don't we? The contradictions are glaring, and Ricky calls her out for it in the most public way possible.
What's happened? They burnt down the lab. You know, it's like, it's odd. It's really strange. Yeah, I don't. Every day he says something that...
But for Ricky, this wasn't just about throwing out facts and figures. It was about the real human cost behind the numbers. He shifted the focus to the veterans, single parents, and countless children who are left waiting in limbo while politicians like Angela offer little more than excuses. To Ricky, this isn't simply a policy failure, it's a profound moral failing. How can leaders justify turning their backs on their own citizens in favour of others? His frustration was raw and unfiltered, and that's precisely what made his criticism hit so hard. It wasn't performative outrage, it was genuine. Ricky wasn't just speaking to make headlines or score points. He was speaking because these truths needed to be aired loud and clear. So, what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.